People who were on new people who were on shows like Undercover Boss. How much of the show was genuine? Were the rewards legitimate? This one episode gifted one guy a franchise of his own at the end as his reward. That franchise opened up in a shitty mall a few towns over from me. So that gift was real, I think. My company was on it. My friend was one of the ones highlighted. Although he didn't get anything personally, I don't think. They promised him he could head up a big project that he had planned. It never happened. It wouldn't have made a big difference for business anyways. The big reveal party at the end was staged so much. They told us we were having an employee appreciation party. We get to the venue. An old theater. And are shuffled inside with cameras all over. I called it right away. Producer comes out on stage and tells us they have to get footage of us reacting to the videos they will eventually show. They made us cheer, laugh, gasp, everything for longer than what is normal. Like 10 minutes straight of laughing. Then 10 minutes of cheering, etc. Then they brought the CEO out and he did his big speech and made him redo a couple things to get a better shot of it. It took forever too. Like a full 4 hours to get the last 5 minutes of the show. I understand now why they made us do all the cheering and laughing first. By the time it was done we were all over it and they wouldn't have gotten anything good. A fast food franchise in my town was on it. The boss was very impressed with the staff and the place was promised. Amongst other things. A total refurb. It never happened and it all still looks the same a few years later. I was behind the scenes of the short-lived Be the Boss. They basically told us it was for some spin-off. Low rent network, but about half of us had it figured out. Some parts of it are fake and other parts of it are real. The two employees that were competing were actual long-term employees and they really didn't know they were competing for a franchise spot. That part was real. The fake sheet came from the actual competition. Basically, they set up two tents about 200 feet away from each other. Of course on the show they were in different parts of the city, and were both trying to sell more than the other tent. Now I know tent 1 sold more stuff. But on the show they made it appear like tent 2 had sold the most. Simply because the girl that was in charge of tent 2 was hot and the dude in charge of the tent 1 wasn't. He had worked harder, gotten the better spot, and legit sold more stuff. But it didn't fit their narrative. All I can say is that Kylo Ren is a punkage. In high school my friend's dad was the undercover boss. So this was a man I had met and had several conversations with. It was all real. And the rewards were real. He worked in the warehouse and gave the workers some better amenities. But there really wasn't much he could improve. They were pretty well taken care of already. Would be a much better show if they used hidden cameras. People act differently if a camera is pointing at them. They would then see what these employees are really like. Date DirecTV during the DirecTV Undercover Boss. The promised GPS devices for every technician. A year later we get GPS on our handheld devices we use for everything. It crashes the device and is not usable unless you want to add time to your job rebooting your evict all the time. They also put GPS on our trucks. We couldn't access that one, only our boss could. I got a call one day to turn my truck off. Turns out they put more than GPS on the trucks. It was -10 outside with a wind chill and I was keeping it running so I could get warm while putting a dish on a roof. They also showed a diverse group of people including women. There are almost no women installers in their entire workforce. They cherry pick sob stories. DirecTV office where I was had 40 installers, all white guys but 1-2. Great money to work for them though. Company truck, gas card, etc. Paid by the job completed, so if you are smart and work fast you can make $100,000 plus a year if you work 6 days a week. The lazy get $12.50 an hour base and sheet on. I know one of the bosses personally. Dude really did everything on the show unprompted and even more that wasn't shown. He has always been a stand-up guy. Someone I met was on it. Said it was 100% real. She legitimately didn't know the guy was the boss until the reveal. The lady that got a car in the Popeyes episode, she said she didn't know who they were until the reveal. They did an episode about the CEO of a limo company I used to work for. when I was there. The CEO's inspirational backstory was that he barely graduated high school and was in prison for a while. He got out and a friend gave him a job driving limos. Over time he worked up to partner and eventually bought the company from his friend. He continued to grow the company into a national limo service. Undercover Boss modified the story, recounting the CEO's tragic struggle with addiction early in his life. That was it. Nothing about his education or prison record. Does every big company or corporation have internal lore or inspirational stories about execs and management? That limo company was the closest I've ever had to a corporate job, whose brother was on it. He figured it out and basically gamed the system to get about $10,000 from the CEO of the company. I guess it was real to that extent. Friend of mine used to work in wardrobe on some of the old 80s TV quiz shows. The studio used to film the panning shots for all the prizes the day before. At the same time the contestants would be in wardrobe, next to the studio, getting fitted with decent clothes and having hair and makeup trials to make sure they didn't look ill or homeless on the show. She told me that if a couple was nice, they would open the adjoining door so that they could hear the announcer saying a brand new car or a once in a lifetime holiday, so that the contestants would know what the prizes were. Edit. The aim of the quiz show was to solve an obscure riddle that would tell you what the prize was. For example, I live in Wood and work in Green. What am I? The prize would be a lawnmower. But I remember the pizza delivery guy smoking a joint on camera and thinking it had to be fake. Nobody is going to smoke a joint in their car with a camera filming it. Cupcake Wars. She violated her NDA. It's pretty much fixed. A buddy of mine was on. He didn't know the boss and really got a vacation. Slightly off topic, I've had a few friends on Ink Master. They're holed up in a hotel for months, told what to wear. Situations are placed for them to talk about. They're told what to talk about. The winner was also chosen prior to the show being halfway filmed. There were some surprise moments though, where they got some really sketchy folk to be tattooed. They're still not sure if production had a hand in those scenarios. I couldn't imagine Undercover Boss not being easy to guess unless of course the CEO has zero contact with the staff. In that case, she is a big dig. Family was contacted by Barter Kings when we had some stuff for sale online in a city they were filming. They asked if they could rent our crap for the day. They paid a few hundred, so I'm not complaining. But the story, the bartering, and the whole script is all made up for entertainment. Worked at an East Side Mario's that was featured. Everyone knew, but no one said anything, at least while the filming crew was around. Everyone kinda just politely played the part. I mean, it was kinda cool to see yourself on TV. But yeah, a lot of fake stuff. The prizes they handed out to one of our staff members were real. Can't speak for others. They definitely chased the sob story, real during the taping. The situations and everything. As far as the rewards, I'm not sure. But they do interview people in the stores beforehand to find out who has a good story before they decide what locations to visit. Kind of like American Idol. They screen people ahead of time so they don't wind up with a boring show. In a factory that was on that show. At the time of the filming, 90% of the factory's workforce were temps, brought in from an outside agency, while only 10% were actual company employees. None of the temps were allowed to work with the CEO, which resulted in several rumors about what was actually going on. Everything they showed about how the plant operated was 100% real, and the CEO kept all of the promises made. There were some folks who regretted treating the new guy like crap. YouTube.com. I wasn't on a show or anything, but when I was in the Navy, they tried this concept with an admiral. It failed miserably, because seamen aren't 50+ years old, and half the ship's officers don't randomly come into your spaces during the day to watch what you're doing. If they had chosen a younger looking commander, and the ship's officers could stop themselves from brown nosing, they might have been able to pull it off. Probably a throwaway post this late in the game. But I worked for a couple guys who were featured on the show Secret Millionaire. They ran a non-profit wrestling club for kids in a rough part of town. to get them off the streets and involved in something productive. The secret millionaires, owners of a large gym chain, showed up one day as random volunteers who said they were filming a documentary, which required the cameras and microphones, etc. They showed up a few times and legitimately helped out. But wrestling club had no clue at all about the actual TV show until one day they walk in with a fat check to cover a year's worth of their expenses to keep running the program. On top of that, they awarded them a franchise location to their gym, with idea that X amount of money would go back to the wrestling foundation once they started profiting. That was an awesome gift. Because starting a gym from scratch costs a ton of money, the equipment alone was $300K I think. So they had about the best starting point one could hope for. The only problem was that they were not equipped to handle owning a business like that. Neither guy had run a business of any kind. And they were both honestly pretty cheap. And put next to no effort in local promoting and advertisement. We didn't even have a sign up near the road. So a lot of locals didn't even know we were there. Long story short, they started out with tons of enthusiasm and optimism, but they ended up having to sell the gym because it became such a huge financial and emotional burden on them. One of them dumped $40K of his own money into it trying to keep it afloat. I worked there as a personal trainer for 3 years and saw the whole thing go downhill. It's kind of sad because it also strained their relationship. But as far as I know, the Wrestling Foundation is still running strong. My friend was on a matchmaker dating show. She and the other contestants were interviewed to see who was a match. But the date had already taken place with one of the other girls. They all had to pretend they were trying to get picked. Worked at the IMCA, they sent out a company-wide email prior that we were one of 4 locations the CEO had chosen to possibly be visited. We never got chosen, but you better believe we were aware that if anyone came in with a camera pretending to film something, we knew who they were. Had a couple family members on a pretty popular dance show. It was pretty real for the most part. They were basically locked up in a hotel in LA and weren't really allowed to go out for a month. But they were able to sneak every now and again. I'd also sneak in there to hang out with them occasionally. As far as the content, it was all real, but the producers would try to instigate stuff. For example, one person was talking some smack about my family member. Producers came up to her and told her she should address it and go talk to her, hoping to get some juicy content. And as you make it if you want a completist during filming. It's obvious what's going on, but if you just react how you think they want, you need only do it once. Some aspects still had some mystery to them and those reactions genuine. The rewards are as legitimate as the entity promising them. The production company makes it clear that they are not responsible. Nor can you come after them for any promise monies or gifts. They film everything. They film so much extra crap you have scarce idea how you will be portrayed until the episode premieres. Some things promised may not make the final cut, and in that there is no time frame on when said entity can make good on those promises, because other than the people on that set, you two are the only ones who know the full extent of gifts. It's up to you, the chosen, to demand what was promised, because that is 100% owed to you and is yours. He owns a bar that was selected to be on Bar Rescue. I don't watch the show, so I'm not sure how it normally turns out. But here is what I can say that happened in our case. They wanted to spin off the bar as basically being in desperate financial trouble. Even though it makes pretty decent money every year. They also wanted to make the bar look as terrible as possible, when in reality it is a fairly nice blue collar bar. At the time they had never had twins on the show. So they wanted to show my brother and I working together and basically constantly fighting and yelling at one another, despite the fact that he had never bartended before. This was a requirement and they said we would not be on if we didn't agree to this. They also basically told all of our other employees to act as inept as possible so that they could turn them around. I am not sure if they spin it as a charity type thing where they do a bunch of work for free, but it seemed like they wanted it portrayed that way. In reality, they make the first 3 payments and then it falls on you. They wanted to do close to $100,000 in work to the bar and building to make it classier, but it didn't really seem like they were changing much for tens of thousands of dollars. In the end we ended up telling them never mind, because we thought that their ideas were pretty bad. and my brother and I weren't real keen on the idea of making spectacles of ourselves on national TV. Of the 3 bars that they rescued, 2 have shut down and the third said they got a lot more business at first. But once it wasn't new anymore, no one really cared. Friend was on it and she said it was real. And she didn't actually know it was the CEO. Only thing was that they promised to give her a week vacation on the show and then tried to only give her a weekend. I'm pretty sure she told me that she just stayed the whole week anyway and they ended up paying for it, not on a show. But back when MTV did that real world show, do they still make that? They were filming one of the seasons across from my friend's apartment. Considering we watched them do 8 takes of getting in and out of the van to get it just right. My guess is those shows are about 99.9% staged. Sometimes gets to secret shop for restaurants. Basically him and his wife will go out to eat, paid for by the restaurant owner, and detail their experience. Was the food quality good? The service? The staff nice? The reward here is that they get a free night out from it. And I find the US versions of shows like Undercover Boss and Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares completely unwatchable. They are just so clearly and horribly staged compared to the British versions. Enough with the sobbing too. Just awful. That was on the Utah Jazz episode and he told me that all the stuff is real except most everyone knew what was going on. People that saw the show knew, and if you knew the boss beforehand you can totally see through the cover. But with the rewards part, he was offered a position and that didn't happen, mostly because the boss wasn't really in control of the area my friend was in. Like he didn't oversee it, another guy did, and he didn't think my friend should get the spot. The wording us everything because he was told he was gonna get a second car and they said second car not new car, and so he did get what was promised but they could have given more. Cool watching an episode once, UK version, and it was very obviously set up. I still sometimes remember when they took this employee that the undercover boss had been working with, posing as a new employee, to his office for the big reveal. He asked the employee, "Do you recognize me?" and he said, "Yes, I have seen your photo on the website," and the boss laughed and took off his glasses. Just tiny thin specks, didn't look any different whilst not wearing them. And the employee was all, "Whoa, what? It's you. The newbie." It was very obviously set up and laughable. There was no way the employee did not recognize the boss just because he was wearing glasses. Haha. Millionaire came to local community service organization and one of the volunteers asks, "Are you the secret millionaire?" and they left. Understood the elaborate yet poorly done disguises. Would anyone actually recognize their company's CEO without a fake mustache? Elo wasn't exactly subtle. It really ticked me off when I realized it was BS. Lady was driving and not using her hands. Images in the windows were obviously staged. Ruined the show for me. User on the first season. From what he told me, most of it was real. A lot of time what people see as staged is more a reshoot to get better views, etc. So when they have the big reveal at the end, it is totally real. But then, as others mentioned, they do things multiple times to get better versions of that. I guess you could say that part is staged, but no more than any other thing is. Also, that was the first season. So in subsequent seasons, it may have gotten more and more fake. This counts. But a friend of a friend was on Ink Master and says the forced dialogue before the vote-offs, where they all sit around the pool table or on the couches totally ripping on each other and arguing, is fake as duck. During his season entire scripts were written and scenes were reshot. Act angrier etc. Lame. Dad's company was on Undercover Boss. He said it was very real and showed how much of a scumbag everyone he works with is. Also said that the people they showed had been in the company for less than a year and everyone quit after the boss gave them their gifts. It's one of the ones they never replay. It was all very real though. Nothing was set up at all. The boss was really that incompetent at the jobs he was given. Edit. For those that want to know exactly what episode, curiosity would be killing me too. I'm sorry, but I really don't trust any of you enough to say. Plus I also don't know if or what my dad signed before the show or for it. I just know he told us to keep it on the down low before the show. I work for was on the show. The CEO was true blue and the prizes were all followed through with. It's reality TV. So all the situations were highly produced. But the problems that came up were all real and nobody knew who the CEO was until the reveal. I still work with one of the technicians who received a big reward, got promoted to a higher level corporate position. Not all of them may be real, but at least one was. Source: I work for Corp. Know who was the CEO personally and I edited some of the video footage. MTV reality show called Your Friend. Andrew WK back in 04. The producer pretty much wrote the story and most of it ended up on the cutting room floor. A few years ago I worked on an episode of Hotel Hell and it was basically the art department calling the shots. And IKEA. So much IKEA. Place I worked at in high school was on it. The Canadian version. They said they were a camera crew shooting for a travel documentary or something along those lines. My co-worker which was featured on it got a free trip. Although I'm still not even sure if she's gone on it yet.